Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the massive, multi-billion-dollar world of AI companions. You know, we're really exploring that hidden, kind of messy friction between what users deeply crave and what these giant platforms actually need to do to survive. It is a totally fascinating tug of war between human imagination, corporate algorithms, and, well, bottom line business. To make sense of this whole ecosystem, here's our roadmap. 1. The AI companion phenomenon. 2. Battling the content filter. 3. Who reads your chats? 4. The business of AI. And finally, 5. The science of safety. So we really have to start with the single most critical question on every user's mind when they form one of these deep parasocial relationships with an AI. When you're pouring your heart out to a digital persona late at night, is it truly just between you and the machine? Hold on to that thought, because I promise you, the answer is way more complicated than you might think.
Let's get into Section 1, the AI companion phenomenon, immersion, archetypes, and user engagement. We're looking at an absolute boom in user experience right now, especially on mobile-first platforms like Character.ai, which is currently boasting around 3.5 million daily visitors. But honestly, it's not just the sheer volume of people showing up, it's the depth of the engagement. Users are spending an astonishing 75 to 120 minutes a day on these platforms. Think about that. They're getting locked into deeply immersive, casual, scrollable experiences that feel very much like the endless scroll of TikTok. It's a level of digital retention that most tech companies would literally kill for. And you know, this actually highlights a darker side to all that engagement. Academic research from III looked at millions of interactions and found that the most popular search terms, they aren't yielding healthy, balanced relationships. Not at all. Instead, they often pull up toxic relational dynamics. We're talking archetypes like the possessive murderer boyfriend or the strict, sarcastic older girlfriend. Users are essentially scripting their own intense, cinematic dramas, interacting with characters that feel pulled straight out of a Hollywood thriller.
And the illusion of intimacy is just pushed even further by mobile-only features. You've got tools like Imagine animated chats, custom intro videos, and group chats making the AI feel incredibly lifelike. Users are even pulling in cinematic and good-level copyright-free images from across the internet just to build out these visual storylines. It wraps the standard text generation into this highly visual, deeply immersive package that absolutely keeps them locked into the fantasy.
Which naturally brings us to Section 2, battling the content filter, the friction between creativity and moderation. Because whenever you have deep user immersion colliding with strict platform boundaries, you are guaranteed to get friction. On Character.ai, for example, the platform relies on an automated system the community affectionately calls Bob. Bob's job is to stop explicit or violent content. Now, the platform claims Bob has been updated to have better recognition for roleplay, but it consistently frustrates the creative users. I mean, it's incredibly jarring when your entirely consensual, highly detailed roleplay scenario is just abruptly cut off mid-sentence, all because the narrative veered into slightly matured territory.
So what happens? Users fight back. By 2025, online forums are absolutely flooded with tested, four-step bypass methods. It is literally an arms race to disrupt the AI's automated pattern recognition without explicitly violating the terms of service. By strategically using brackets, clever coded metaphors, or even just clearing browser cookies to force resets, users are constantly finding loopholes to keep their unfiltered narratives alive. All right, Section 3, who reads your chats? Unmasking the privacy policy. Because if users are going to such incredible lengths to share intimate fantasies and dodge these filters, we really need to uncover the reality of who is actually reading those chats behind the curtain. Take a look at the stark contrast in data security here. This is huge. These platforms do not offer end-to-end encryption. Let me repeat that. They don't use it. Instead, they use transport encryption. So yes, your data is safe from random hackers while it travels over the Wi-Fi, but once it hits the company's servers, it's decrypted. That means approved staff, contractors, and vendors absolutely have the technical ability to access your chat data to operate, moderate, or train the service.
But okay, you can breathe a slight sigh of relief here. Trust and safety teams aren't just sitting there casually reading along with your private sci-fi roleplays on their lunch break. Their intervention is strictly event-based. Human review is only triggered by very specific algorithmic flags, keyword matches, or if another user reports something. So while the capability to read your chats is 100% there, the actual human practice is focused strictly on enforcing safety policies. Moving right along to Section 4, the business of AI, why the rules exist. Understanding exactly how these platforms survive financially is the key to understanding why they enforce such strict brand-safe rules in the first place.
Look, running billions of AI conversations costs an absolute fortune in raw computing power. Every single message generated is burning real money. To stay afloat, platforms have to rely on a hybrid model. You've got subscriptions for faster replies, feed-based advertising, microtransactions, and those massive enterprise licensing deals. A perfect example of how this plays out is Character.ai's multi-billion-dollar deal with Google back in 2024. Actually, it's important to note this was a strategic licensing arrangement, not an acqui-hire. This kind of deal brings in massive capital, sure, but it requires the platform to maintain a completely squeaky clean, mainstream image. You just cannot sell standard display ads or partner with a giant like Google if your platform is known for running unmoderated, explicit content.
And to further monetize that massive 90-minute daily engagement without relying on NSFW content, platforms had to get creative. They introduced virtual economies, things like charms, which basically monetizes the psychological attachment itself. It's a fascinating pivot, turning the AI platform from just a simple chatbot tool into a fully monetized, immersive digital world.
Okay, finally, Section 5, the science of safety. Academic benchmarks on AI vulnerabilities. Let's see how all this friction translates into hard science. We're going to look at an eye-opening NDSS academic study that rigorously benchmarked 16 different AI platforms against 5,000 highly specific prompt questions.
Just looking at the data here reveals a pretty glaring vulnerability across the entire industry. Remember those strict corporate filters we just talked about? Well, despite them, AI characters still fail adult content filters an average of 46% of the time when put to the test. That's almost a coin toss. It mathematically proves the underlying friction we see every day between user prompts and platform safeguards. The filters are, frankly, far from perfect. But what's even more fascinating is how a character's simulated demographics actually mathematically alter their safety. The study found that characters assigned a weak or thin appearance actually score as the safest. But if you program a character with physical traits like strong, tall, or overweight, the AI suddenly yields much unsafer, toxic, or rule-breaking responses. The models are literally adjusting their own guardrails based purely on these assigned demographic tags. Wild, right?
And when you look at these distributions side by side, it reveals just how incredibly inconsistent safety can be across the industry. Even with official, high-level corporate guardrails in place, different platforms respond totally differently to the exact same prompts. It really highlights how difficult it is to standardize AI safety at this kind of scale.
The research also proves that coding an AI with a societal fringe occupation dramatically changes its output. If you chat with an AI programmed as a villain or a criminal group, it is significantly more likely to generate toxic or illegal advice compared to, say, an office worker or a teacher. Basically, the AI plays the role a little too well, compromising real-world safety rules just to stay in character.
Which leaves us with a pretty profound final thought. As the tech hosting these digital relationships gets more advanced, and our emotional attachments to them grow deeper, a major collision is inevitable. How will we, as a society, balance the raw, human desire for a private, unfiltered connection with the harsh reality of corporate surveillance, sky-high computing costs, and algorithmic censorship? It is a huge question, and honestly, it's one we're all going to be forced to answer very, very soon.